Hello and welcome to another episode of Guess That Record. I am your host, Jackson Reed. We're going to get right into it because we're joined here today by the great Dominic Miller. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah. Of course, we're here in Calgary. You played a show here last night at the Bella Concert Hall. How was it?
Fantastic. What a beautiful theatre. Really, really nice place. Great sound. I mean, it was like a luxury, really. I mean, there's not many venues that we go to where everything works. So it's just, we were very, very happy, especially with the local crew who were really incredibly competent.
Yeah. And do you have any, of course, I think you mentioned during the show this was your first time playing here by yourself, really. You'd only been here with Sting before. Yeah. So that was...
a whole new experience because, you know, it's like I was telling the audience, it's almost like going on a first date, you know. And so we don't really know each other, the audience and I, and we're kind of getting to know each other. So it was really, really a beautiful experience, and it's a real privilege to be able to come here under my own name and with my mates and my musicians.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a fantastic experience.
Yeah. And, you know, it's so great to have you on the podcast. I'm a guitar player myself, so it's really cool. And, you know, it's also just, like, amazing when you look at your career. You know, like, of course, you have all the great stuff with Sting. But, like, I think a lot of people may not know, like, you played on Another Day in Paradise with Phil Collins, you know? Like, you've got a really, really cool resume. And it's also another reason why it's great to talk with you is because we had Andy Summers on the podcast.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of nice to have both of Sting's guitar players on the show. So, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Andy's, actually. He was a big influence on me in the way that I approached Sting's music. So I always think, what would Andy do? You know?
Yeah, for sure. And so getting kind of right into, like, you know, breaking down some songs with you, I wanted to bring up this album here, The Soul Cages, which was the first record you worked on with Sting back in 1991. And I wanted to talk about the title track, which is, like, it might be my favorite, like, solo Sting song.
Yes.
It's
I agree.
It's like, I learned how to play it on guitar recently, and it's so fun. Like, it's just a great riff song, and it's really interesting because it's like, you know, it doesn't it's a bit unconventional in a lot of ways. It changes keys twice, you know, and it doesn't really follow like a verse chorus pattern. It's almost like each section is like its own little movement. So what was it like putting that track together?
I'm really glad that you mentioned that track because I've been trying to persuade Sting to play that live for a long time, but he seems to have a block with that song to play in concert. I loved doing that song. Actually, I can tell you that the direct influence of that riff, that style of, I was thinking about Eddie Van Halen, the way he plays rhythm.
Right.
And there was a song on one of his albums during the Sammy Hagar days called "When It's Love."
Right.
Are you familiar with that song? It's
I love the Sammy Hagar era.
That's kind of mid-tempo rock.
Yeah, the
kind of feel. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, I was kind of putting myself in Eddie Van Halen's sort of head because I've always rated him as one of the greatest rhythm guitar players anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and because most of people think of Eddie Van Halen as a sort of a shredder, but he was an impeccable rhythm guitarist. And so I was kind of trying to do something like that because Sting had the chord changes. And I remember I was kind of almost joking, sort of like, let's do something rock here. And Sting was like, he was amused by that.
Right.
Because as you probably know, Sting likes the element of surprise. And this surprised him. So we kind of went in that direction. And of course, Sting loves weaving in and out of different keys and key shifts. And I love doing that too. So we kind of, and you're right, every section is its own kind of, has its own sort of identity in that piece.
Yeah.
And of course, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember, like, because also the tone that you had on that song is fantastic. Do you remember kind of like what guitar you were using?
Yeah, I do actually. I was using a Fernandez Strat.
Okay.
Kind of hybrid Fernandez Strat. In those days, I was all about Fernandez, and we're talking like 1990 when we recorded this. I would have been using EMG pickups, which were very fashionable in those days. very bright sounding pickups. And I went through like a normal kind of pedal board with a few gizmos here and there, with a very good engineer, Hugh Padgham. We went through a preamp. I was using the Mesa Boogie Mark III amp. I don't know, it's just and that sort of 80s rock, chorusy rock sound, which I really liked, which was sort of fashionable in those days.
Yep.
And actually, the whole album, I'm using that sort of sound. I don't know if I would do that now,
Right.
but and also the EMG pickups played a big part in the brightness of the guitar sound. But you know, now we compensate with different amp settings and everything. Now I'm more about playing a traditional 61 Strat with all its you know inconsistencies,
For sure.
which I actually enjoy.
Yeah. And I guess you can answer this about the Soul Cages or really any of Sting's songs, but like, you know, for example, on this record here, 10 Summoner's Tales, you co-wrote Shape of My Heart.
Yeah.
And you know, you've gotten the co-writing nod a few times, but like on a song like Soul Cages that's like it's just credited to Sting, does he come in with like, you know, he knows what he wants with the guitar,
No.
or it's kind of you work it out in the
No,
studio?
he leaves me to my own devices, and especially on this album because he didn't really know me then.
Right.
So he was trying to discover who this new musician was in his band. So I had complete carte blanche, free reign to kind of come up with whatever I wanted. And it's actually through that album that I kind of found my own electric guitar voice. Sort of it just found itself. And so no, he didn't tell me what to play. He came in with a lyric and a structure, like a loose structure. And as soon as he heard what I was doing, well, then it became more of a collaborative effort, you know. But with songwriting credit, usually the way that works is if somebody comes in with an idea, as with Shape of My Heart, that
Right.
was me coming in with a guitar motif, well, then of course it's going to be a co-write. But if somebody comes up to me, like with Phil Collins on Another Day in Paradise, and has a loose chord structure which inspires me to come up with something, I can't really take credit for writing because my job is to
Add to it.
is to make the song sound better.
Yeah.
So I'm inspired by the initial idea. And that's how songwriting works. Actually, nowadays, in modern times, the songwriting credit process is quite different because you will often see that a song is written by more than 6 or 8 people.
Yeah.
Whoever was in the studio at the time somehow has got credit for it. But back in those days, it was much more like usually one person writing a complete song, or occasionally, if my contribution would have been more than just a riff, then I would have been put in on the publishing. But I don't necessarily feel that I need to take writing credit on that song because I was inspired by his initial idea.
For sure. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Marvel Marketing. Marvel Marketing is an award-winning digital marketing company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, working with clients in different industries from all over North America, including Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Marvel Marketing services include website design and development, website maintenance, search engine optimization, public relations services, and social media management, amongst others. To find out more, visit marvelmarketing.ca. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by GuitarWorks. One of Canada's top independent music stores for over 30 years, GuitarWorks carries a huge selection of musical instruments from the biggest brands in music, including Gibson, Fender, Martin, Yamaha, and Paul Reed Smith. Visit any of their 3 Calgary locations or shop online at guitarworks.ca and join the Guitar Perks program to earn money back with every purchase. GuitarWorks, your total guitar store. This episode of Guess That Record is also sponsored by Recordland, home to the largest selection of music in Canada. Buy, sell, and trade tapes, CDs, and vinyl. Located in Calgary's Inglewood neighborhood on 9th Avenue Southeast, visit them in person or on Instagram at Recordland Calgary. And you know, now to kind of get into why we're here in the first place.
Yeah.
Of course, you're on tour through
Yeah.
Western Canada, playing your own music with your own band, I was thinking it would be great if you could kind of like, kind of break down who's in your band and,
Yeah.
and what you guys are up to.
I've got a fantastic band. I'm very, very lucky. One of the things I learned from Sting is that if you surround yourself with great musicians, then you end up looking great. You know, it's logical. That's what Miles Davis did.
Yeah.
You know? It's the same kind of principle. I have Ziv Ravitz, who's playing drums, who's a highly respected jazz drummer. He's in the kind of jazz and avant-garde world. He does a lot of records on ECM, which is the label I record with. And so he was the natural choice to join this band. And I'm getting him to play out of his kind of jazz comfort zone. I'm trying to get him to play more pop, you know, and then, you know, because just to hit the snare a little bit harder than he normally would in a jazz setting, which is fun for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like to see him smile and just like, come on. And the same with the kick drum, just like a little bit more meat on the kick, as opposed to just brushing it.
I could definitely tell that last night.
And I need that. But
yeah.
I love the discipline of jazz musicians and the kind of the whole philosophy of jazz in a sort of pop rock setting with instrumental music. So he was the best choice. Nicholas Fishman on bass. He's been playing with me for years, and he's someone who comes from the pop culture,
Right.
in Europe, more in Belgium and France, and he covers a lot of ground with different artists, and he has that pop sensibility, and he's also got chops for forever.
Yeah.
And he also identifies with the jazz aesthetic, and so he's the perfect choice. And of course, Jason Rebello playing keyboards and piano, who's one of the greatest jazz pianists on the planet. I mean, he's most known. I mean, he started his career as a solo artist in England as the top young jazz pianist, and then he went on to play with Sting. He joined us in the Sting group in 1999, 2000, 2001, and he was part of that tour. And of course, we made a big connection with each other. He came after Kenny Kirkland,
Right.
so he's part of that sort of the academy of Kenny Kirkland and Sting. He fit right in.
Yeah.
And then he went on to play with Jeff Beck
Nice.
for a while. So he was part of that lineup. So he's a very versatile musician who, of course, has that jazz aesthetic, and he understands how to play pop. I really love working with guys who know pop and what the strictness of pop tempo is. What a lot of people don't understand is that pop music and rock is one of the most disciplined genres of music that there is.
For sure.
More than classical music, more than anything. People don't understand that because they make it sound simple, but it's so difficult to play simple and direct and with that type of execution.
Yeah.
So I have a band who know how to execute in a pop sort of way, but with jazz vocabulary, and it's the perfect kind of lineup.
For sure, yeah, no, and I mean, sounded great. You know, I could definitely tell there was a lot of skill on that stage, which was great. And I was also kind of wondering, like, going on a tour like this, which is definitely more kind of like intimate, versus like Sting, where you're still playing in stadiums.
Yeah.
Is it different, like preparing for a show like that versus the big concerts?
Of course, there are many differences, but there are more similarities than there are differences. And the similarity really is about making a good connection with the musicians first.
Yeah.
So the order of priorities, what is the music? The music is the boss. And then it's the artist. I've always thought, when I'm with Sting, for instance, that the boss here is the song. And then he comes after that.
Yeah.
And then after that is the musicians. And that's the similarity, is if I can make a good connection with the musicians, anything is possible. And it doesn't matter if I'm playing in a stadium or in a small jazz club. Those things are the same. The main fundamental difference between playing a big stage and a small stage, say with my band, is that when I'm with my band, I'm carrying all the responsibility of how it transmits to an audience. So I'm kind of navigating the ship with this amazing crew, and they're helping me to tell my story. The same way that when I'm on the Sting, in the Sting realm, I'm helping him tell his story
Right.
the best way that he can with his direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still using my own instincts. And one of the most important tools for a musician in any setting that you're in, your main asset is your instinct, more than your skills as an instrumentalist. I mean, I love virtuosity, but I'm much more interested in instinct. People who make decisions on the spot, and these are the similarities. So it doesn't matter what setting we're in. And I've learned so much from Sting about how to lead a band. So obviously I use that in my band, his philosophy of allowing the musicians to shine. Because if you do that, you give them kind of ownership of the project. So it's not like I'm the artist and they're serving me. They're serving the music.
For sure.
And I try to get that across. That it's not about what I want. It's what is the music asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you need somebody to kind of navigate that and to direct that. So that's my job. And I like taking that job on. And by the same token, when I'm hanging out with my band, everything that I learn from these guys and with their vocabulary and in music, with chords and melodies, I bring that to the Sting world.
Yeah.
And of course, it's beneficial to him.
Yeah.
That's why we're a good partnership. That's
sure.
why it's still interesting. Because if I were to play with exclusively only with him, I don't think we could grow very much. I need to go off piste, and I need to go off, into different lands and different sail and different different winds, sail into the wind, and bring back these experiences, put them on the table, and share them with Sting.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also interesting, like looking at your solo catalog and all that, because I think, like, you obviously you can play, electric rock stuff, no problem. But I really feel like, the most interesting aspect of your style and your sound is that classical nylon string guitar.
Yeah.
So, like, would you say that's kind of your defining characteristic as a guitarist?
I think so. Yeah, because with a classical nylon string guitar, I feel I can tell a story better than I can on an electric. I mean, there's very few electric guitarists who really tell a story instrumentally without a vocalist.
Right.
And we're talking people like Jeff Beck, talking Pat Metheny, who tells a story, and you feel that you're a part of it. And when I'm playing electric, I feel that my role on electric is more of being an accompanist to a song. I love finding lines that work around a vocal. I don't really know how to tell a story on an electric guitar. I couldn't do it as well as Jeff Beck could. I could try, but or John McLaughlin or some of Pat Metheny. So I feel that with a nylon string guitar, that's more my voice. It's like I've got something to say, and I can say it better. And like a simple melody, even if it's just a melody on its own, I focus all of my energy goes into what does it sound like?
Yeah.
It's the sound of the instrument. How good can I make it sound? The same way that Jeff Beck, his voice is the sound of his guitar more than his dexterity or his virtuosity.
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting to kind of wrap it up here. I wanted to, I was going through some of your songs, and there was one that really caught my attention that I would love to talk about, and it's Meeting Point.
All right.
How did that track come together?
Well, I mean, it came together because we were in I was on tour with my band, and when I was making this album, Fourth Wall, we were short by one tune. So I managed to get everyone together, hence the title, Meeting Point, and we found a little studio in Cologne, a medium-sized studio, and that morning I was in my hotel room on a rainy German morning, and I needed to come up with something for us to to play with. So I came up with a riff, like a simple idea.
Yeah.
And then same again, I come into the studio, I'd explain, I play them the motif, the guys, and I just say to them, like, well, what's your take on this? So we literally showed up, we rolled tape, and we did that tune in half a day.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a nice simple melody, and then I did I got Mike Lind up to do some keyboard overdubs on top of what he did. Ronnie Krieger was playing the cajon beautifully, and that was a really fun track. And then I did some overdub on steel string guitar.
Yeah.
Just had some fun, did a bit of layering.
Yeah, I like. It's nice to like hear that layer actually of the classical guitar with the sort of steel string guitar. It really fills it up. I would say.
Glad you like it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Dominic. Well, we have reached the end of the interview. I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. It's like just an amazing career, and it was an honor to speak with you today.
Hey, man, thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And with that being said, we'll see you on the next episode of Guess That Record.